Only Human Radio.
In for the yellow, screw back, green brow boo, pink and black. Yes, indeed, it's 6 times world snooker champion, techno DJ, and also modular synth enthusiast and guru. It's only Steve Davis. Steve, how are you?
How you doing, Julie? Yes, thank you very much. I got to say, that sounded like a remix of Snooker Looper you came out with there. That was as good or as an original version of it as I've heard for many a year.
It's taken me 3 days of practice to be able to get those balls in order. So it's not easy.
I was impressed. It's a long time since I've got those balls in order myself. I mean, I don't think I'm getting any in order at the moment in my life. But yeah.
Are you still playing, Steve?
Yeah.
Because you're playing. Do you play in the seniors? Are you not playing at all now?
No, I retired in 2016.
Right.
Competitive play, and the only thing I've done with a queue is do exhibitions and fun nights. But I decided to retire, not just from the main circuit, of which I was more or less falling off it anyway, but just from competition, for the sake of the fact that if you're going to compete, you need to put the dedication and the practice in. And it was something that I felt I'd exhausted. So it coincided with another part of my life that's happened that wasn't a plan. It's total coincidence. I'd love to say it's a plan because it looks seamless, but when I stopped playing, like most people in sport, you wonder, what the future holds, because especially the thrill of playing and competing is something that's, you become a bit of an adrenaline junkie.
Yeah, I'm sure.
If that goes, and your whole reason for your job of preparing for the, it's part of it's even the preparation, practicing, building up for the matches, and then even if you lose, you still got the practice, and that's an exciting thing as well.
Yeah. And
the moment that evaporates for a sports person, there is a danger that you sort of fall into, what do you do? Do you become a gardener? What replaces that? So even though it was late in my life compared to a lot of sports people that would have had to have retired, say a footballer or a cricketer or whatever, would have to retire in their 30s, and then they've got the big problem. Then what do? For me, sort of retiring basically nearly 60, that wasn't so much of a problem. But still, what do you do if you stop?
But I mean, a lot of people would just think, well, I'll retire, or I'll just go and, I don't know, go and work in a bookshop or something like that. But you took such a step sideways. I mean, completely different track altogether. And
totally.
Track's probably the right word.
Yeah. I mean, there was a little bit of crossover, in as much as I'd been doing a radio show for many years on a local community radio station, Phoenix FM. So it wasn't something that just happened after I retired. But it sort of took on a new lease of life. And it was, as I say, nothing to do with a plan. And it seemed like overnight, from being doing a radio show, we all of a sudden were DJing. And that took it to another level, of which incredible sort of like the fun of it, apart from anything else. And, within the space of 3 months, after having DJing at the Block Weekend down in Minehead, the last Block event, we got invited to DJ at Glastonbury.
So
our second,
Sorry, Steve. I was just going to say. I mean, just because we're going to jump onto Glastonbury in a second, which is, that's amazing to DJ at Glastonbury. That's just phenomenal. That's just ridiculous. But were you an experienced DJ before you started doing all this, or was this like from zero that you achieved this?
Yeah, from zero. Yeah, and the thing, obviously, there's a novelty factor. So therefore, you're off to a flying start. But what we decided to do, Kavus, Torabi and myself, who we co-present on the radio show, we basically took our radio show to DJing.
Yeah.
And we tried, so it's hard to explain the style of music we play, but it's esoteric's the wrong word, alternative's the wrong word. It's just music that you may not necessarily know, because it's sort of it's not, it's unusual in some respects. Perhaps the time signatures are different, or they're not that fashionable an artist. And we decided to see if we could DJ and actually get people to dance by playing stuff they'd never heard before. but not techno, because obviously
Yeah.
there's techno, just the beat.
Yeah.
But we tried to see if we could put together enough music that people would have a good time to.
Yeah.
Even if they have never heard the track. So that's a tough call. But what it did mean is we were just playing tracks like you would on the radio, one after the other.
Right.
We weren't beat matching.
Okay.
There was no attempt to try and make, it wasn't seamless music. It was like, we were more like selectors.
Yeah.
The old school DJ of just playing a track, then playing another one.
Yeah.
But it was a challenge to try and get people to actually like and stay at our sort of set.
Yeah.
Knowing full well the likelihood was they won't have heard of 90%, if not more, of the tracks we're going to play, and that's so that's tough.
And so when that went to Glastonbury, then did you do it exactly the same way, that you thought, right, I'm gonna play tracks here that it's going to challenge people, really, isn't it? And it's a challenge for you guys trying to get people to dance to it, but it's a challenge for the people listening to it as well, because they're expected to hear stuff that they're used to hearing.
Yeah, I think on that first time at Glastonbury, I think perhaps we played two tracks that people might know. We played "Tomorrow Never Knows" from the Beatles.
Yeah.
One sort of nod to their most psychedelic track, and we played, I think, "Tropical Hot Dog Nights" by Captain Beefheart.
Right.
But the other stuff nobody would have ever heard of. But of course, as I say, there's a novelty aspect. So when we got there, we were DJing on the Thursday, which is a day where there's no bands on.
Yeah.
And people are milling around, wondering what to do. And obviously, let's go and see him. Oh, yeah. Yes. So we had an absolutely packed tent of 500 people.
Really?
And there were loads of people trying to get out to get in. So we had perhaps twice as many people outside trying to get in, because there wasn't that much going on Thursday at Glastonbury. So I think the people that were inside were trapped and fancied not moving anyway. So we had a sort of bit of a trapped audience. And obviously, you get other people. There's a few people dressed up with bow ties and queues and all shit like that. But the end result was we had a bloody good time, and it seemed like people enjoyed it. So whether they were dancing because they liked to, or whether the person next to them was jumping up and down and they had to jump up and down because of the friction, we'll never know. But it made us realize that maybe we had something to offer that was different to anything else out there. And we weren't DJing. We weren't DJing because we wanted to DJ. We were DJing because we liked the music. So that's continued. And then once we DJ'd there, the phone started ringing more and more. And now we've done, up until recently, we've done countless numbers of, and really enjoyed every one. They're a great experience.
Oh, I'm sure, yeah, and because that Glastonbury experience as well then moved you on to if I'm right, moved you on to forming the group, the Utopia Strong, didn't it?
Well, yes, although that once again wasn't a plan. It wasn't sort of necessarily because of this happened.
Yeah.
The whole Utopia Strong thing is a direct result of me stumbling upon an instrument called the modular synthesizer, and then also being able to then play music along with Kavus, Torabi and Mike York, another friend of ours, and then basically jamming together. And the idea of that was so we could hang out and have a laugh.
Yeah.
It was with there was no idea to make any music or have a band.
Yeah.
So the first time we ever jammed together was on the 2nd of January 2018. I think that was right. Yes. We sat back that night after a few more beers, and we listened to what we'd recorded, because Mike York recorded the stuff we jammed during the daytime, and we thought, actually, some of this sounds quite good. And they were sort of quite long form, 20-minute, 30-minute pieces, and but there were little sections that were like, wow, we could make that into something. So we ended up making an album with no plan to make an album. We then, at the end of making this album, went, we can put this out.
Yeah.
We found a record label, Rocket Recordings. Rocket Recordings then shook our hand on the deal and said, we like it, we're going to put it out, and take the risk on the fact that one of the people involved in the band has only ever played in Snooker Loopy, right? Which is a little bit of the liability, okay? And then they then said, well, obviously, when you put the record out, when we put the record out, we want to promote it. You'll need to tour, and you'll need to play live events. So I was like, oh, okay. So yeah, I had no choice but to then become a musician, and and so now I've been on the stage playing. I don't know how many. COVID sort of messed it all up in a way,
well,
but
yeah.
Yeah, and the latest thing, it would have been if COVID just hadn't hit and everything. This year, the year just gone, we would have been the support band for Steve Hillage.
No way. That's
on
amazing.
his tour. So, honestly, as I say, no plan. It just things happened as a result of one thing. The consequences of one thing happening.
So with the modular synthesis, then. So had you any experience in that before you started on that? Because again, you've gone straight into an album, straight into live shows, and straight into modular synthesis, which is not easy.
No, and but what is good about modular synthesizer is even if you barely know anything, noises come out of it.
True.
Well, you need to know something, right?
Yeah.
But noises come out of it, and then it's down to you to decide what noises are okay and what noises maybe get rid of.
Yeah.
Even if you don't really know the instrument fully, and even if you're not clever enough to really understand every part of it, stuff still comes out.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the same way as you bash a piano, and every now and again you go, "Oh, those two notes sound good together. Oh, let's record that," even if you can't really play the piano. So
yeah.
So when we first made the first album, I think looking back, I didn't really know much about it.
Yeah.
It was controlling me more than me controlling it, and I'm still not sure. And it is very much a learning curve that goes on forever with the modular synthesizer. It's not really about dexterity. It's more about understanding and knowledge. I know. I assume you know exactly what I'm talking about. But anybody that's not aware of it, a modular synthesizer. It can come in various forms, but you don't need a keyboard, so you don't have to be able to. You don't actually have to have any skill in that learning skill of how many thousand hours you need to learn.
Yeah,
you can just with patch wires, you patch it in, and that makes the sound. So you don't need to have this musical background, which I didn't have, and you're off and running. So there's a lot of people getting into it for that reason, that you can make music even if you haven't had that musical interest and background in the first place. Where
the massive challenge I found, I don't use modular synthesis. I found it way too complex for me. I've got a much far simpler setup. I'll show you after I finish the interview. But anyway, the thing I find with modular synthesis, and I've got a couple of friends who are big into it, is that they're saying that it's very difficult when you've recorded a piece, and I'd be interested to find out your experience with this. So you've recorded your piece and then you want to go and play that piece live. Repeating what you did is almost impossible. And that's therein
lies the beauty of it.
Yeah.
That when we play live as the band, we are improvising every time we go out.
Yeah.
So if anybody comes along to see the Utopia Strong play a live set, they're not going to be listening to anything from an album they previously bought.
Yeah.
And that's got plus and minuses. But the great thing is that you sort of, for me anyway, because I'm not a trained musician in that sense, I don't have to go through that learning curve of rehearsing something and then going and playing it on the stage. So it actually suits me in a way because of that. And Kavus, Torabi and Mike York, they quite like being in the band and improvising because it's unlike anything else they do in their other jobs, in their other bands. So it sort of serves a purpose. But no, you're totally right. It is nigh on impossible, even if you know your modular synthesizer to the nth degree.
Yeah,
it is nigh on impossible to repeat. So the only way you could do it would be to record and cheat on stage. Yeah. And what's the point of that? There's
Absolutely.
No point.
And that's what I was kind of thinking, because the song we're going to play shortly is Brain Surgeons 3, which is a beautiful, amazing, evolving piece of music. It's just superb.
Yeah.
And again, if you're trying to play that live, I guess it's just going to be a completely different performance every single time.
Yeah, well, the only way would have been if we took the stems from it originally and cheated on stage. But what they say, what is the point of that?
Exactly. You might as well just play a record.
Exactly. Yeah. What is the point? So there is part of me that thinks that perhaps more bands should, other than the fact that the fans who come along want to listen to the tracks they know and sing along with them. That's one of the things that happens that when you go along with like-minded people, you go along to be a fan of the band and you want to sing along to all their favorite tracks.
Yeah.
But what I like, and perhaps as I've got a bit more involved in it and understand it more, I'd love bands that I like to do a section during the evening which is totally improvised.
Yeah.
To see what came out, because that's a one-off, and every now and again something special happens. There may be crap as well, but yeah, those special moments are worth. That's what you pay for the ticket, not to hear, for me anyway, not to hear the 100th rendition of a track that you've heard many times before and go, oh yeah, that one I like better than the last gig. Yeah, I think they played it better. That bloke messed up that note there. Yeah, what are you doing? It's a weird thing, isn't it? It's like going to see the Mousetrap on the stage. The 50th performance, somebody slightly acted differently, and everybody went, "Oh, that was the best one they've ever done." Well, so yeah, I think improvise is something that I'm really getting more into, as long as it's not the crappy stuff.
Yeah.
Like I don't, the stuff where it's just somebody's got a drum kit and they never even hit it. They just hit the sides of it, and the guy, the blower's sucking like in the Fast Show, things that you can that can go out the window. But good improvisation, something like the Necks, the Australian band called the Necks. They go out and improvise. And they may have some sort of idea where they're going, but they improvise every night, and you get good shows and bad shows. But at least you've got something that's organic.
Well, exactly. And so when you're doing live performances as a band, then do you do it exactly that way, that you kind of have an idea of what's going to happen? You've got like a set piece for, say, right, this is the song we're going to try and play, or we're going to play, and then we'll just see how it evolves. So you've got like a set list, but that set list is going to be completely evolving each time because the songs are just going to turn out completely different.
Well, it's not even that.
Right.
Honestly, it's really seat of the pants stuff. Some of the things we've done, what's happened is we've gone along to the for the sound check, and I've sort of like messed around with the sequencer and got a sequence of notes going as a sort of core just to start with on the day of the sound check.
Yeah.
And left it like that, and that's been the start of the show. And then, I sort of liken it to I've got a certain amount of responsibilities to sort of have the rhythm and the beat.
Yeah.
That could be pre-programmed to some degree, but it's more important. It's more fun to not, as long as you're up for the job. So I'm sort of like, in a way, if you made the analogy with a football analogy, I'm sort of like perhaps a centre half.
Right.
And then, or maybe midfield, either whatever. And then Kavus and Mike are sort of like two Lionel Messis flying around all over the place. Working off of that, So that they got, in a way, it's quite. They are skillful musicians, so they're allowed to. But I just sort of keep it simple, and you need something that's grounded as well. But even if we planned the first track, the trouble with modular synthesizer, it's very hard to have much more planned unless you cheat. Once again, we'll say cheating. Unless you've got things programmed into a beatboxy sort of thing. Something. You could easily. There's loads of things out there which everything could be planned. Yeah. So then once we've done the first one, even if you sort of I pre sort of done some sequence, the next track is just seat of the pants stuff. It's hilarious.
That's so exciting.
But sometimes that's been our best stuff,
Yeah.
And also the thing is with a modular synthesizer, even though you've probably got a lot of power under the bonnet, that if you were doing a solo performance, you would be able to produce some amazing stuff, and do all things, drums, bass, melody, everything. When you're in a band and there's three of you, less is more. You don't have to do so much, so it's quite nice as long as you're listening to what the others are doing. So this is all a learning curve, total learning curve for me. But it's very inspiring, and to think that sort of my secondary hobby, like my first hobby, snooker, became my profession. Stupid to think that my second hobby, music, has ended up, I wouldn't say I'm earning fortunes. We're not earning fortunes from it at all.
Yeah.
But you could have. I've just gone. My internet's unstable. I'm a musician. I'm on Discogs. I've got an entry on Discogs. Yeah. What's wrong with the world?
And I tell you what's really nice as well is because I've bought your book. I've not read the whole thing yet. I've read some little tiny bits of it. But you've got a new book out, which is Medical Grade Music. I read some of the reviews of it. Barry Hearn wasn't very nice, was he?
No, that was the best bit about it. Yeah, we had a glowing review from Harry Sauld saying it was a really entertaining book, and then underneath Barry said couldn't get past the intro.
Yeah.
But then he loves country and western music, so that's why it's on there. But it works very well, you know. Yeah, it's my best mate. You know, it's quite funny that was on there.
That was a great quote. That it really was. But it's a lovely book as well because it's the little bits I've read, and I'm kind of picking this up from one of the reviews actually as well. It's kind of like sitting in the pub with you guys, just listening to how all this evolved, and it's such a warm. I don't know. It's a very heartwarming piece to actually read. It wasn't what I was expecting. It's a really nice book. I was expecting it to be good, but I wasn't expecting the read it was.
No, thank you. Well, thank you very much. I mean, funnily enough, the book initially was going to be a little bit of a follow-up to the radio show to basically, as it says in the prologue or whatever to the book introduction. It was the idea originally was going to be 52 artists.
Yeah,
that we knew, but most people didn't, and recommending an album for you to listen to as a way into that particular artist, and that happens quite a lot. You know, somebody says, "Oh, I've heard of Frank Zappa. What's my way in?"
Yeah, and
that was going to be it. So the way in album is this, and then we started to write it and realised we're not music writers. We can't. Once we got. How many times can you say wonderful and brilliant before you're boring yourself shitless?
Yeah.
So the end result was it stumbled a bit, the book, and we thought we've bitten off more than we can chew here. This is not going to be a fun book. But then we realised that actually there was another story to be told. Effectively, what we're talking about now.
Yeah.
How bizarre things have happened. As a consequence of getting together and the accidents and timelines of life and sliding doors moments.
Yeah, exactly.
And so forgive me, but sort of what we're talking about, some of these things that I've talked about today, they're actually in the book because they're relevant to what's going on. But it seems such an unlikely thing that happened that it felt like there was a story there.
Yeah.
So then we switched it around so that the story's unfolding and you're reading two blokes talking about their friendship and what a funny thing happened at a DJing gig stuff, but credible stuff. And then along the way, recommending music for people. So it's quite nice. Somebody went, I've been reading the book and playing music in the background of what that chapter was about. So that's quite a nice thing to do.
It is, and I will thoroughly recommend it to everybody because it really is, as I say, quite a heartwarming book as well. It wasn't quite, so I wasn't sure what to expect, but it was a really, really gentle, nice read. Yeah, really good. And even if you're not a big, massive music fan, I think you'd enjoy it anyway. It's a great book. So we've got the song Brain Surgeons 3 coming up in a second, Steve, as well.
Wow.
So if anybody wants to come and see you live anywhere, is there anything planned? I know things are starting to come out now. So have you got any DJ sets? Have you got any live performances? What are you doing?
We have got a couple of things happening. We're starting to do a few more sets. I think there's something in June happening in the London area.
Right.
I haven't really planned this. I'm not. We looks like we're going to have a tour a small tour with a band called Teeth of the Sea.
Right.
In November. That's sort of nailed on. And obviously everything's still a bit up in the air with social distancing in venues to know how many people you can get in.
Exactly.
But things are starting to happen again. Not too many DJing things because I think a lot of the festivals are worried. They don't really want to get too far down the line. I doubt very much if they can get insurance on it cancelling as well. But
true.
So it's slowly happening.
Yeah.
And it's sort of events starting to sort of open up, and as long as things don't go too drastic in any weird direction, things will start opening up. And so, yeah, we'd be doing more, but we've got to get back in the saddle and get the nerves again going on stage. I mean, the DJing, we used to get really nervous DJing, but now that the band thing, that the DJ's, that's the easy bit, just sort of put a CD in and press play. But playing on stage live, I can't tell you, it's worse. It's worse than anything other than your first round at the World Championship of the Crucible, which is really that was the worst. That was the worst feeling. The first match in an event, especially at the World Championship, was you were at your worst, your most gibbering wreck. But every time going on a stage playing in the band, especially if you haven't got a clue what you're playing, I can't tell you, I don't even know why I agreed to do it, but it's happened.
Well, you look cool as a cucumber no matter what you're doing, Steve. You always do. Nerves of steel.
Yeah, that's the duck on the top of the water when the legs are all over the place, aren't they, underneath the water? Honestly, the first few times I've just felt like I wanted to run a million miles away when I was on stage. It's I can't tell you, don't do it if you have done it. It's terrible.
I've done it, but to much smaller audiences than you, I think.
Well, I don't know, but talking to Kavus and Mike, who are very experienced musicians who have played in front of thousands, even they say that going out and playing for them differently, playing an improvised set, they got nerves as well because it was a journey into the unknown for them. Yeah. So they couldn't just sit back on the fact they'd rehearsed something a million times and they knew how to play it, and they could think about something else while they were playing it. That level of rehearsal intensive music. But so they were gibbering wrecks in the dressing room beforehand. So I wasn't on my own, which was the only sort of saving grace, that there were three of us who were just frightened to walk out on the stage. But then there is a beauty in forcing yourself to be out of your comfort zone.
Well, exactly. And it's that nervous adrenaline that drives that creativity. And then all of a sudden you end up with an absolute gem that you weren't expecting to suddenly pop out.
Yeah. And as a result of that, we've recorded most of the concerts, the gigs we've done. Yeah. And we've actually put out a few albums of stuff that was not studio stuff. Yeah. We've got one live album that was recorded at Oslo venue in Hackney. Right. It's one long piece of music that just was wonderful. Yeah. And magic happens every now and again. And that particular night, everything seemed to work. So it's like a 30-minute, 40-minute piece of music that we did without stopping, that was totally improvised. Yeah. Other than my first sequence that had happened at the sound check, and then we put that out as an album. I mean, that was magic. That was magic happening just right there.
So if anybody wants to go and find some of your music, Steve, and buy some of your stuff, where's the best place to go? Because I found some on Bandcamp, but where else do we go to find it?
Well, Bandcamp, yeah. I mean, we've got one album out on Rocket Recordings, but they sell the vinyl sold out on Bandcamp. Yeah, they sell via Bandcamp, and obviously, you can go to record shops, but obviously, Discogs still has a certain amount of stuff on it, but that's sort of resellers really. And we're more or less in the final stages of getting our second album mixed. But then there's vinyl's now up to 6 months waiting time. Right. There's from the moment you've made your album, it's another 6 months before you get in the queue effectively of all the other people. There's a shortage, I believe, of pressing plants for how much vinyl currently needed.
Well, it's massively in demand again, vinyl, isn't it? It's like a big new thing again, which is brilliant.
Yeah, so we've got everything's on Bandcamp, on the Utopia Strong Bandcamp. But we're not. There's only one album on Spotify because our sort of private releases we're not putting on Spotify because we're just not. Yeah.
Steve Davis, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you this evening. It really has. Really appreciate you spending the time with us. We're going to play Brain Surgeons 3 now. Please do search out Steve's stuff on Bandcamp. It's been a pleasure, Steve. Really has. Thank you so much for doing it. And hopefully we can do this again some point in the future. Cheers, Steve.
Only Human Radio.